From the all-new Fatheadz Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny, with the founder and CEO of Fatheadz Eyewear, Rico Elmore.
Well, welcome to The Skinny. My name's Rico Elmore, as I think they said earlier. Founder and CEO of Fatheadz Eyewear. Today I've got a good friend, longtime Speedway resident, Speedway Town Council Vice President, former Speedway President, or Town Council President, and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, a lot of things.
A lot of things. So anyhow, thank you for coming today.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess one thing we could start talking about is, you know, when we first started talking about moving to Speedway, you know, and amongst other things, that's probably more of the PG rated that we can talk about. So.
Right.
But I don't know if we were in Brownsburg or we were, you know, or if we were in Indy by then, but you know, it was always an aspiration to move, you know, to Speedway. Of course, we wanted to move, you know, right next door to the track if I had my way, and, you know, which is probably a good idea that we didn't, being that, you know, there's a lot of fun that goes on there and things like that. But, you know, we're excited to be here. It's been, you know, it's been a lot of work getting here. It's been even more work transforming a building from the early 60s to a building of use today, and all the, you know, tech stuff and Ethernet and all this and that goes into it. But, you know, you look at it from the outside, it's a work of art. I mean, it's beautiful architecture, of course, but then you look at it inside and, you know, we try to carry the theme on. So first and foremost, thanks for alerting us to, you know, that this may be a possibility, and with a little bit of vision, we were able to make it happen along with you and the, you know, the folks with Speedway. So
yeah, you know, and you touched on it that you know, you had reached out to me several years ago, and even before I was even on town council, and you always had interest in Speedway and thought it made sense for your business and your business model, and we never could find the right fit, the right piece of property, the right deal. We just never could find it. And development continued, and to be honest with you, this was way off of our radar, because all of our you know, our focus was over around the Main Street area, around the roundabout corridor, and once we really started to establish that whole area, then our focus started to crawl further west out Crawfordsville Road, and then obviously towards High School Road. And the town of Speedway sat on this particular property, I want to say close to 7-8 years, and we had no idea what to do with it, because we had no idea what our plan was, what the scope of this whole 465 High School Road, Crawfordsville Road corridor was going to look like. And I remember the phone call. I think I was driving down the street here, and something just kind of hit me, and thought, well, maybe this is something of interest. And that's when I called, and it was, you know, it was put out for RFP, and there was other interest in this piece of property, and I think that the SRC, the Speedway Redevelopment Commission, looked at this and said, and looked at your proposal, and they were most impressed with what the plan was for this building. First of all, you were going to preserve it, you were going to rehab it, because like you said, it's a beautiful building, especially more so now, and it was job creation. You were bringing business.
I guess it was something when we walked over here and came in the building and looked at what an absolute wreck it was, you know, the condition of it, and, you know, the way the people had left it, unfortunately, that were here prior to, you know, us many years ago. And it's one of those things that takes a lot of vision to make things happen sometimes. And it was delightfully, it turned out the way it did. To say that it's been a wild ride is probably an understatement. it's a place that everybody is proud to come to, that everybody loves the place and loves being here. And that's one of my main goals, is making a comfortable work environment. Yeah, it's been awesome. And, you know, we put this podcast studio in, you know, for us to be able to pop in and knock out interviews and, you know, talk to our, you know, our sponsored athletes, or, you know, friends like yourself and things like that that go along with it. So the bottom line is we love it in Speedway. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are like, you moved to where, you know, but the access, you know, from here to jump on the interstate, I mean, you can get to the airport within 10, 15 minutes. You know, the businesses that are around that are supporting, and the ones that are, you know, that are being added or coming along as it grows. You know, that's the other nice part of it. You know, we wanted to be not in, but we also wanted to be a part of a growing community, you know, and growing, when I say growing business wise. Speaking of the Speedway, so tell me how the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has a place in your heart.
Let's see. Well, I grew up here in Speedway. I grew up literally right across the street from the main straightaway. So when I'd wake up in the morning, I'd rise myself out of bed and I could see the suites from the outside, and I always thought, man, I want to figure out a way to be one of those people up there. So I got involved with racing through my father, and I just stooged for a couple an IndyCar team here in town, and finally got into ownership on the Indy Lights side of things with myself and Tyce Carlson and a couple other partners that we had, and just learned the business that way and the hard way. And just have been involved ever since.
So how was that, owning a car? Is it as much as it's cracked up to be?
On the days, the best day ever was when we finished second at Mid-Ohio with Wade Cunningham, and there were several lows, and one of which was when we were going into the next racing season, and we had hired Shane Meal to drive our car, and he was injured in an accident, as you well know, injured in an accident in Terre Haute, and so that was a low. That was when I kind of decided I needed to back out of this, and so I got out of racing for a little while, and it was actually Shane that said, I saw him at your suite at Lucas Oil Raceway, and I saw him a year or two later, it might have been, and I saw him, and he said, hey, if I'm still in racing, you should be too. So I got back in, and here we are. I've been involved ever since on sponsorship, procurement, management, team management, hospitality. So here we are.
And I understand your comment about Shane, and I got to tell you, we were very involved in a lot of racing things, and that was really our way that we were going to bring Fatheadz to the forefront, and everybody to know who we were. And we were very, very involved in it, and yeah, a few of those things happened, and some other things fed into it as well. And we stepped away from it, and I mean stepped away from it in a big way. I get it, and we have since started dabbling back into it and started moving back in to the program. And and I'm glad we're back. I really am. I take a lot of enjoyment in it. Take a lot of pride in the people that we're involved with too. And that goes both ways. So we got to be involved with people that believe in our products as well as we believe in them. So one without the other never works. And it's a business deal or much like a friendship. You know, it's if one's got to work harder than the other one, then it's not a good relationship. So I do get it, because a few, like you said, a few of those things happened, and all I could think about the whole time that it was going on was, you know, I'm providing the money to make that happen. And but you know what? Listen, man, we got one of these to live, and when it's time, it's time. And if you're not trying to flat-foot it around Terre Haute like Shane was, you know, you're trying to you know, and get hurt, you know, horribly. You may be just walking across the street and get hurt worse, you know. So
absolutely.
It's but you know, the great thing about Shane is, you know, he has persevered, you know, and he's shown a lot of people what life is really about.
That's right.
And he said I'm a lucky man that this happened to me. He goes, I'm a better person now than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a lot to be said about that. You know, sometimes it takes tragedy in your life for you to, you know, for you to get turned around and say, hey, I got another chance at this. Let's see how good I can make it this time. So, but you know, I totally get it. You know, it's I think that we've got, you know, we've only just begun with a lot of, you know, with all the cool things that are going on, and it's all about timing, you know, and when it's time, you know, that's when, you know, maybe when it'll be our time. That's right. Versus everyone else. So, but you honor that speedway, you know, you honor that track and what it's about. And, you know, I mean, listen, I used to come to the Speedway, and I lived in Newcastle. I came to the Speedway, and you know, one of my greatest memories at the Speedway was, you know, I of course, being the model student that I was, had to have my mom with me on the school field trip that, you know, we went there, and I said to my mom, hey, I got to use the bathroom, which really meant, hey, I want to go look around, you know, so we go and check everything out, and, you know, I'm walking down through there, and here's AJ Foyt coming out of the Firestone building. Right. And where it used to be under the bleachers, right there, right outside the old gasoline alley. And, you know, I had some old bum piece of paper, you know, I didn't even have a program or anything. And he was raising hell with them in there, you know, of course, because it was the tire's fault, I'm sure, you know. And I walked right up to him and I said, can I have your autograph? And he said, yes, son. He said, absolutely, son, let me sign that. And he signed it, and I said, man, this place is amazing. And always as a kid, Rick Mears was my favorite. I mean, he was just was and still is a class act. And, you know, I thought Danny Sullivan was unbelievable, just his path and how he got there. Right. And
cab driver to Indy 500 win.
Yeah, exactly. The spin and win, you know, and there's things that are hard to fathom, you know, and the emotions and the things that were going on. And I mean, I remember sitting with my dad, if we didn't go, you know, we didn't go to the race back then that much, but, you know, we would go do other things there and would visit, like I think a lot of people do, you know. And the good thing about the Speedway is now they've made it where families can go a little bit easier now than you know, and I think better than that, they've advertised it that you can, you know, that it's you can go family friendly, and you know, there won't be a car on fire in the snake pit and all that, the good stuff. But but no, I mean, I remember, you know, some of my fondest moments of the 500 was, you know, maybe working with my dad cleaning out his work van. He had a green AM radio that had like the United States like imprinted in the front of it. He'd crank that dude on, and we'd be out there, you know, the whole day, and usually just hotter than hell, you know. And if you're a kid, you're too stupid to realize how hot it is at that point in time.
It didn't matter.
Didn't matter. Yeah, it was a pretty magical time. But you know, but then, you know, as I, you know, got older, and then of course moved over here, you know, we would spend more time at the race, and we would go to the race, but going to the race was just going to the race and getting the hell back out of Speedway, out of this hellhole. You know what I mean? There wasn't the nicest things here, like the wild cherry, which, you know, I'm
unfamiliar with
very upsetting that you guys tore that building down. But I thought they would be a national landmark, but anyhow, you know, places like that. But I mean, that's what the cool part is, you know, you guys have come in, and you know, and even the folks before you, but you know, as of recently, it really seems like it's moving a lot faster for those who helped before, you know, to get it moving, period, because it wasn't doing anything before. I mean, Main Street was a cut through, and you know, it was you know, somewhat of a tough place, and you know, it's and everybody that grew up here, I mean, it's just like me growing up in Newcastle. It's not much different. The only thing that's different is Speedway has the world's greatest, you know, race in the world that happens here, you know, and Newcastle has the world's largest field house, but that really isn't a reason to stay there. So, but no, I mean, you know, you know, I moved here for work. I moved here to grow, and I moved here to have, you know, as my hayseed ass would say, I moved here to move to the city, you know, and figure out how to maybe do it a little bit bigger and a little bit better. So, but you know, at the end of the day, it's you know, we've enjoyed every bit of it, and you know, it's been great. And the things that are moving in this in Speedway, you know, you're not in the downtown Indianapolis or Castleton where you can't move, and you know, you're setting in traffic nonstop. You know, you're not setting in that stuff. And as this grows and as more things happen, there's probably going to be some infrastructure problems that need to be addressed. But you know, at this point, you know, it's pretty easy to navigate and get around and get through. And you know, if you guys want to mess all the parking up on Main Street, but
thanks. No,
just kidding.
But you know, what's interesting is that you know, growing up here, you know, like in Newcastle, I'm sure there was probably like a town square, a place where kids would cruise to, or
Broad Street
in Newcastle. Yep. So we didn't have that here in Speed. We don't have a town center, you know, square. The only thing that kids had to do on a Friday night was, you know, go to the Noble Romans at 30th and High School, where the CVS is now. That used to be a Noble Romans. That's where we would go for, you know, after ball games. But it was my senior year, and I thought, you know what, we're going to try something. So I got some people together, and I said, hey, after the ball game, let's go cruise down Main Street and hang out. So, all right. So we had 15, 20 cars following us down Main Street. So we go down Main Street, and not a single place is open, and you can see a tumbleweed go down the middle. You make one pass, now we're done. Now what? Head back over to Noble Roman. So back then there was nothing. There was a pet store, plumbing supply store. Maybe that was about it, but nothing was open. And to watch the transformation over the last few years, and you know, a lot of good people got us going, and some very smart people here, you know, that are pushing this thing forward as we grow. And look, we're not pretending, and nor do we want to pretend that we're a Carmel or we're a Fountain Square or we're a Broad Ripple. You know, we're a Speedway. So we're very cognizant of who we are. You
got your own identity.
That's all we want to do, man.
Right.
We just want to do our thing.
But that's the cool part.
Right.
You know.
That's right.
If you want to be Carmel, go to Carmel. If you want to be Fountain Square, go to Fountain Square. And and that's the cool part of it. It's got its own identity.
Absolutely.
And and you know, talk about Main Street. I mean, the events that are held there, and I mean, you know, take like any good politician, you know, and I'm not saying that of you, but most politicians will take all credit for anything that ever happens. But you got to realize it's the great people of Speedway that have made it happen.
Absolutely.
That have been here, that have hung on, that have been in their house for 20 years, that have never moved out of that house, and you know, now that house that was worth, you know, $50,000 maybe worth $85,000 now, where before it never appreciated, was always depreciating as the way as it went. And you know, and they deserve that, those folks that hung on and said, you know what, I'm Speedway and I'm not going anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah. And I've met a lot of them, and I mean, I think it's very cool, and a lot of them were very interested in what we were doing here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that was okay. I mean, I had no issue with that, and you know, it was amazing. I found the original people who built this building when it was Rotes or Rots Engineering, however you'd like to pronounce it, and I found them, and the guy still had some mechanical drawings, so I wanted anything I could get of the building or for the building. And you know, the funny thing about it is when I asked him for them, he said, well, he goes, I got a few questions first. What are you doing with that building? And I mean, this guy hasn't been in this building for 30 years,
right,
and he still has ownership
That's
to
right.
it in his mind and in his heart. And you know, I told him what we were doing, and we're yet to have him out. We are hoping to do that soon when it works, when it's not minus 37 degrees right. or plus 100 and plus degrees, you know. So you know, we want to have him out, and as well as, you know, we want to have a you know, an open house, a grand opening type of thing, and invite some media out and let them walk the building, and let them walk the building and check out the new warehouse area and things like that. So it should be, I mean, we're not going anywhere. So, I mean, we're going to be here and do our thing. So, you know, I was talking about my favorite time at the Speedway, something that's most memorable, kid, adult, any of the above.
Wow. There's so
other
many.
than to get to hang out with me more. I mean, that's very memorable.
Yeah, that goes without saying. Probably, well, you know, as a kid, you know, growing up, you know, again, across the street and you know, go over to the track with my grandpa. But, you know, one story that I enjoyed the most, and I tell this, and I told Doug Bowles this a couple weeks ago, because it's about the relationships that you build and the people, and it's that whole experience that IMS and the people at IMS really enjoy. And one of my favorites of all time didn't happen necessarily in the track. It was because, you know, I was parking cars as a kid, and we had a very small front yard. And one day, well, it was the day before the race, and it was still pretty quiet, and a Greyhound bus came down our street and stopped in front of our house, and a guy kind of peeked his head out of the driver's seat and said, "Hey, kid, are you parking cars?" And I'm like, "Sure, yeah, we're parking." And he goes, "Well, will you park this?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, no problem." And now then he asked the magic question, "Well, how much?" Well, I'm like 7 or 8 years old. I really don't have a concept of money, so I just kind of threw the, you know, $200. You know, I had no idea. It sounded big.
Right.
It sounded like $1 million. But he's like, "Okay, where do you want us?" So I'm like, "Oh my God, now what am I going to do?" So backed him into the driveway. And at that point, I'm thinking, okay, while they're doing this, I need to run inside and let my mom know that we now have a Greyhound bus parked in our front yard. So, so got that done. She you know, she wasn't happy with me at the time, but as the day went on and as actually the years went on, because they became kind of our extended family. They came from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, parked in our front yard for probably 18 years, maybe 15, 18 years, and they were 28 guys would come and set up their shop, and they were always very, courteous and very thoughtful for my mom and my sister and I, and it was always fun. Every year they would bring us a gift, a T-shirt or something from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Well, one year they forgot to bring us a gift, so they stopped off the side of the road on the way out, and a team of them got out on the interstate and took the Fond du Lac population, 35,000, whatever, took that green sign off of off the mounting post, put it in the bus, and brought it with them. So I use that sign every year to mark their spot, and it's those kind of things that I remember the most. I love the Speedway, obviously. Involved with it, I couldn't imagine not. But someday it will happen. But
so Doug loved the story. I remember I talked to you about it. Love the story. Have you found him?
So I found one. So Doug asked me if I've talked to any of them, if I could find them, because it'd be a great story to see if they'd be around. They were 100 years old when I was 8. So I'm thinking, there's no possible way.
Right.
Well, it comes to find out that the ringleader of the group, we did find in Fond du Lac. So I think we're efforting a trip from Fond du Lac to Indy, and like to give them a behind the scenes look. Never in a million years would they have thought that little kid
that parked them.
Yeah.
That is, and you know what? And that's what it's about. And I mean, my daughter was talking about somebody that parks at their house, which is right around the corner from you, and the same thing. And I mean, they've only been there a couple of years, but I mean, it's every race or whatever. They've got an RV. They're coming over there, and that's to that point, what Doug was talking about and what you were sharing with me, that's putting it back in the community.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought, I thought one of the things when I heard of some of the developments that were going to go on around the Speedway that have yet to be announced, and some things like that just, that are in the grapevine right now, kind of hearing it. I thought to myself, why are they going to get rid of this parking? Or why are they going to cause, this is going to cause a bigger issue with more things right here. And then hearing him say that, I'm like, that is genius. Mm-hmm. You've never been to Green Bay, right? We had this conversation, right?
Been.
Okay. So I went to Green Bay, Wisconsin with Chucky.
Mm-hmm.
He played there for a couple of years, and when I went with him, I was like, well, where are we going to park? I mean, we had passes and everything. The team had taken good care of them, and I said, well, where are we going to park? He says, oh, down here. We turn down this road. The next thing you know, we're pulled in somebody's yard, and we walk. I don't know. We walk. A half quarter mile, and we're in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, after that happened, man, that is cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool. Now it's freezing, but I mean, that part was not cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It was freezing like it is steaming hot here in May.
Right.
So, but I thought to myself, man, that is really cool. So anyhow, we went to the game, and I never forgot that experience. And I thought about that experience when you were talking about, parking this bus, and you sent me the picture of the bus with the guys with the Fond du Lac, sign and things like that. And I mean, that's what brings it back to Indy. It's not, there's a place for people that want to park in a parking lot, that want to maybe wear, their Sunday outfit to go to a suite or whatever, to do it like that. That's okay too. But you know what? There's a hell of a lot more that want to sit in those stands, and they want to tailgate, or they want to park in, you know, in Jeff's yard. Save me a spot. I'll be back next year. If I'm not back by this day, give my spot away, whatever,
right.
or by this time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it's about. That is what the relationship with the Speedway and Speedway Indiana has in common, you know, and it's not, you know, the Speedway is not a burden on Speedway Indiana. It's actually something that's good for, you know, for the Speedway. Right. So that's the cool part of it. And you got to think, man, I know that they would never trim the numbers for any reasons there, but, you know, the 100th running, there was 500,000 people in that place.
No doubt. And,
you know, at the end of the day, what a magical experience. I mean, just from the outside looking in, and, you know, I'm a lot more to the inside than a lot, you know, but from the outside looking in, you know, my perspective, it was, you know, I never forget looking, you know, standing out on the front balcony at our suite, and Forrest Lucas standing there with me and just said, "Is this not the most amazing thing you've ever seen?"
Truly
and
is.
And it is. I mean, you can't describe it to somebody because they would not understand
Right.
the magnitude of it and what it's really about. It's part of life now, you know, for me more than it's ever been now. And, you know, that we're also involved with, you know, various drivers, teams and things like that, you know, thanks to your help, by the way. You know, it even makes it more fun, you know, to get to visit with them or be a part of it a little bit more than you were before. So, yeah, I'm excited to see if these guys are able to make it back, and if they, you know, I'm sure they would want to come back,
right,
if that was the case, and they had a place to sit in a suite, probably not really wanting to be, you know, bleacher warriors anymore, you know, and have a golf cart to take them over to check out this and that, and not walk, you know, 4 miles in one, you know, in one setting. So,
the days of wearing your empty cooler on your head on the way back to the bus, I think those days are over.
Right. Well, you never know. But yeah, I mean, it's it's good stuff. But I mean, we started this podcast to talk to people like yourself and people that we know, and drivers, and just to get a different perspective. And, you know, one of the congressmen that, U.S. congressmen that I spoke with, you know, he said, "Well, what's the agenda?" I said, "There is none." I said, "We just start talking about stuff, and it just kind of ends up where it ends up." And, you know, it's a lot better that way. It's not structured, and, you know, you're worried about, did I hit all my points and all this and that. And so anything coming up in Speedway that's of any interest, or anything that's I
mean, we've got quite a bit going on. We just recently purchased a building at the corner of Lyndhurst and Crawfordsville Road. It was formerly the PNC Bank building, and it's a 2-story plus a basement building, about 44,000 square feet. And, you know, those before me, town leaders for decades, have been looking at that building thinking, man, at some point this would be a really, really good place for a town hall, town center, community space, that kind of thing. Well, the timing was right, and so we bought that property from PNC, and we're going through the you know, the design phase, the feasibility studies, you know, what departments are going to be in where, those kind of things now. So that's going to be an ongoing project, and we think that we should have construction completed probably by April of 2020. So that's one project. Another, the Speedway Redevelopment Commission, they've been very busy, and they continue great work. So they are redeveloping. They've got some spaces on 1300 block of Main Street. So that's being worked on now. And then, of course, we've got this corridor out here on, it's called, we call it 2500 high school road. So it's that large piece of property that's
up at the corner.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Just south of here. So
and you know what? That's the gateway to Speedway.
Right.
And what did it used to be?
It
awful.
It was some seedy motels, and
you rolled in Speedway and right back out of Speedway after the race.
You did not stay at the Hojo in the late '90s, early 2000s. So we've got that parcel, and we're talking to several different developers. We want it right. We want to make it right, and this is our one chance to get it right. We continue to work on those type of things. There's more in the pipeline. We've got to get creative because we can't just go and start buying farmers' land. We're landlocked, so we've got to redevelop, and that's one thing that we're proud of, is that we've got smart people working on these things. So that's what we're doing.
It's amazing for the people of the town of Speedway. It's amazing for them too, and now it's become a place that you didn't even have to grow up here to want to move here.
Right.
That's saying something for, the community and the leadership and people like that are making it happen. So with that, I think I've taken up enough of your time today, and you need to get back to being vice president of the council and everything else you do. So, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was an honor, actually. Yeah.
And thanks for being a good friend.
You're welcome.
So, Carl, we're out. 44.
This episode of The Skinny has been brought to you by Fatheadz Eyewear. Check out all of our unique eyewear lines for men and women at fatheadz.com. To read more about Rico's history, his blog, and philanthropies, visit his personal page at ricoelmore.com.